The locker room was eerily quiet when Coach Steele walked in, the echoes of the earlier match long gone. His sharp eyes scanned the room, and they landed on Blake, who was still lingering by his locker in nothing but his underwear. Steele's entrance seemed to startle him slightly, but Blake recovered quickly, leaning casually against the bench. "Blake didn't realize anyone was still here," Steele said, his voice low but calm, expertly masking the intrigue he felt. Blake smirked, though there was a faint flush on his cheeks. "Lost track of time, coach. Got caught up on a call with my girl. You know how it is." Steele nodded, stepping further into the room, keeping his movements casual. "Ah, young love. It's good to hear you're staying focused, on and off the field." Blake laughed, the sound a bit forced. "Focused, sure, she was. Motivating me," he added, shifting slightly. The movement drew Steele's attention downward, where the unmistakable outline of a hard-on pressed against Blake's briefs. Steele raised an eyebrow, keeping his expression neutral. "Motivation, huh? Guess it worked, considering the game you just played." Blake chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his neck. "Yeah, well, she knows how to push the right buttons." He glanced down as if realizing just how obvious his arousal was. His cocky facade faltered for a moment. Sorry, coach. Didn't mean to. You know." Steele waved it off, taking a seat on the bench nearby. "No need to apologize. You're young, it happens. Besides, better here than out there making headlines for the wrong reasons, right?" Blake grinned at that, his confidence creeping back. "True that. She's just. Man, she's something else. Had me all worked up. I mean, look at this," he said, suddenly reaching for his waistband. With a dramatic flourish, he tugged down his underwear and let them fall to the floor. Steele's breath hitched imperceptibly as Blake's 10 inches stood proudly, the air thickening between them. Blake laughed, though there was a nervous edge to it now. "Yeah, she's got me like this, and she's not even here. Crazy, right?" Steele leaned back slightly, composing himself. His voice was measured as he said, "Well, you can't exactly go back out there like that, can you?" Blake hesitated, a faint blush creeping up his neck. "Yeah, guess not. But it's not like I can just snap out of it." Steele tilted his head, his gaze steady but unreadable. "Sometimes it helps to have a little guidance," he said smoothly, standing up and stepping closer. Blake's eyes flicked to Steele, his cocky demeanor slipping further as uncertainty crept in. "Guidance," he repeated, his voice quieter now. Steele placed a hand on the bench beside Blake, leaning in just enough to feel the tension coil between them. "Relax, Blake. I've helped players with tension before. Let me handle this." Blake blinked, caught between confusion and curiosity. Coach, you've helped players with this kind of thing before." Steele chuckled softly, the sound rich and steady. "You'd be surprised how much pressure builds up for athletes like you. It's my job to keep you at your peak, mentally and physically." His hand rested on Blake's shoulder now, a firm but calming presence. Blake swallowed hard, his usual confidence wavering as Steele's words sank in. "I mean, I guess, if it's for the team, right?" he said, trying to laugh but betraying his nervousness. Steele smiled, the corners of his mouth curling with subtle charm. "Exactly. Just trust me, Blake. Let me take care of this." Blake hesitated, but the reassuring tone in Steele's voice soothed his nerves. He nodded slowly, muttering, "All right, coach. I guess. Yeah, I trust you." Steele knelt gracefully in front of Blake, his movements precise and intentional, never giving Blake a moment to question his choice. When Steele began, the effect was immediate. Blake's breath hitched, and he gripped the edge of the bench so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Shish, coach," Blake gasped, his voice cracking as Steele worked with expert precision, a blend of calculated technique and natural talent. The cocky athlete was quickly reduced to a panting mess, his bravado stripped away as Steele maintained a steady rhythm. Blake's head fell back against the locker, his eyes wide and unfocused. "Oh, man, this is insane," he mumbled, his words spilling out in fragments. Steele glanced up briefly, his gaze sharp but warm. "Just breathe, Blake. Let go. That's the point." Blake's legs began to tremble, and his hands shot up to brace against the wall behind him as waves of euphoria rolled through him. His cries grew louder, unrestrained now. "Coach! Oh, holy!" His voice broke into a desperate scream, echoing in the empty locker room. Steele didn't let up, his focus unwavering until Blake finally collapsed back against the bench, his chest heaving as he struggled to catch his breath. "How's that for stress relief?" Steele asked, standing and casually wiping his hands on a nearby towel, his expression unreadable yet calm. Blake stared at him, his cocky smirk slowly creeping back as the euphoria faded into a hazy afterglow. "Coach, I gotta say, you're a pro at this. No wonder the team's always performing so well." Steele chuckled, his voice low and smooth. "Just doing my job, Blake. Remember, this stays between us." Blake grinned, his confidence fully restored. "Of course, coach. You're the best."